Hey Stillwater, welcome to the Still Connect podcast, the show all about our amazing town, Stillwater, Oklahoma. I'm your host, Denver Evans. I grew up right here and now run Stillwater Digital Marketing, so this place is home through and through. Every week, I sit down for a laid-back chat with someone who's helping build community here in Stillwater. Whether you've been here forever or you're just dropping by, this is your spot to plug in, hear some great stories, and feel a little more connected to the people who make Stillwater what it is. Here's the best part. This is a mobile podcast, so I've recorded all of these interviews in these local businesses. So if you like watching your podcast, check them out on Spotify or YouTube. I'm really excited about today's episode. I'm here with Chris Peters from the Stillwegian. How are you?
Doing good, Denver. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bip about yourself.
The very open-ended question in the
Yep.
very beginning.
Yeah.
Where do I want to start? Let's see. Let's start with what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
So January, I started the Stillwegian, so an online news publication that's my tagline is laser focused on Stillwater, Oklahoma. I previously spent some time at the Stillwater News Press as a news editor, so somebody that actually takes the stories from the reporters and places them on the page. And then does any editing necessary or writing headlines, photo descriptions, or what we call cut lines. And then I also had the opportunity while I was there to kind of flip over to what we called the dark side, which was sales. So then I also did just advertising sales rep for a while. And so I think kind of the origin story for what I'm doing now, kind of the seeds of that started back in 2009 when I first, 2008, 2009, when I first came to Stillwater. I knew I met my wife and decided to move to Stillwater. And at the time, I was working at the Apple store in Oklahoma City. I had a full-time job there, but I didn't really want to commute back and forth that long to Stillwater. And one of the things I did at the Apple store was I was a personal trainer. So I did one-to-one sessions with customers, teaching them how to use their iPhone, how to use their Mac, how to edit video, how to maybe create a website for their family. Really kind of allowed me to utilize all these creative tools and outlets that I had learned in my kind of previous career before that. And so while I was there, people, I would have customers come from Stillwater to the Apple store in Penn Square Mall and spend an hour with me. And, it's one of those things, they're learning how they want to, organize their files and make sure their photos are backed up. And a lot of times I'd be helping them out with that, but there'd be things where it's like, because they were bringing their computer, sometimes like their desktop computer, like a whole desktop computer, they're bringing in the car, like especially if somebody that had like a Mac Pro, like a 40-pound desktop,
Right.
that we spent like 15 minutes just hooking everything up and turning it on. But I had some customers that were like, man, if you were ever in Stillwater, we'd like you to like do personal training, like one-on-one, like in their homes or with their businesses. So I decided to move to Stillwater. And so like kind of my beginnings in Stillwater was a very entrepreneurial, like, okay, I'm going to come here. I know I've got some people that want to be kind of my clients and maybe I can build a business off this. So my first business was called Your Apple Trainer. My fellow Apple store employees were like, you can't call it Apple. They'll sue you.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm just a little tiny guppy in the pond now. And of course, that's back before Apple became like the first $1 trillion company ever.
Right.
iPods were still like their big money maker. And so that's kind of what brought me to Stillwater, started doing that. And this is early on. I had always, been somebody, like I've been listening to podcasts since 2003. I'd actually uploaded podcasts at a church. We just uploaded our sermons as a podcast. So not quite like this.
Yeah.
Just here's the recording of the sermon, put it up as a podcast so people can listen anytime. Been doing that forever. And also did like the church website and was into blogs and kind of all that early, like like Web 2.0 era.
Right.
And so I moved to Stillwater. Twitter's still relatively new, and spending a lot of time online, also getting to know Stillwater, like kind of in the digital realm. Facebook really wasn't a huge thing,
Right.
for the community. And Twitter, we used to have tweet ups because there was a whole like 30 of us on Twitter back in like 2008, 2009. We'd meet up at Aspen Coffee on Perkins. We'd have tweet ups.
That is so funny.
And it was some people from Interworks, not a surprise. And it was different OSU students. And then somebody like me that's just kind of a family guy, got a young family. And so at that time, also, like, I'm moving to Stillwater. I'm like, okay, I want to know what's happening in Stillwater. And so where do you go? You go to the Stillwater News Press. And I remember my first interaction with the news press was go to the website. And this was back when websites could just force a full screen ad on your screen. Like before browsers were able to truly like block that type of behavior.
Yeah.
And it was a giant Barry Sanders Honda ad, like full screen takeover. One of those where you're like, okay, where's the dang X? It just, it rubbed me the wrong way. And also just the reading experience. It's actually better now. But that was much more where you had ads moving around and just, it seemed like you didn't want me to actually read your content.
Right.
You just wanted me to consume your ads.
It's about monetizing.
Yes. The experience was terrible. Like I like to imagine, like, if you had a printed newspaper and imagine you go to open to, A3 and then somebody quickly slides in an ad in front of you and is like, hey, no, buy a car. And so it just wasn't that great. So I actually started back then a website because the other things I was learning, like WordPress. And so I saw like, okay, we have these tools now where we can self-publish anything online. And once again, this is kind of before Facebook and like the major social media platforms are taking off, especially amongst just average people.
Yeah.
And so I bought stwoknews.com and installed I had already been running my business website. So I added another WordPress installation. And these people on Twitter that I was talking with, some of them were also OSU journalism students. And one of them was actually the editor of the Ocali, well, soon to be editor. She wasn't yet. And just wanted a place. I wanted to read what was happening in the community, what people were willing to share. And I was like, I think I can build a website. I know everybody can have their own little login. They can, be their own author. And we could kind of, tag team on this. So we did that for maybe a couple months. It didn't last too long. And at the time, I was just more excited about creating the space, really. I don't have any education in journalism. I don't have my media education was in more of a church program, but nothing that could be considered formal. Even though now I think YouTube could be like almost considered formal education on a lot of this stuff. But and I didn't really understand even the like more traditional journalists, like how the news is even collected. Why does an advertiser want to be with the news, and kind of all that stuff? So business models and how it all worked, it was just more, hey, I made this, let's see if it takes off. Had people, submitting articles and sharing them with each other and stuff online, but didn't really go much further than that. And then my son, my second child, was coming into the picture on the way. And so I had to run back to work at the Apple store for insurance so we could have them. So go back there. And then, and so I came back after some time at Apple, and I got a job at OSU in the student union bookstore.
Oh, yeah.
So, and that would have been 2010, 2000, 2011. No, it was right before then. Cause I remember, cause I was able to go, I was at the 2011 Bedlam game.
Oh yeah.
That beat OU. And I knew I was like a new employee. I was all excited to work on campus. I like sold my car, bought a bicycle from District Bicycles, and was just so excited to be on campus and helped start Orange Tech there with a gentleman named Bryson Baker of Everman.
Yeah.
And so I worked there for a little while, and then my daughter, when she was 4, she was diagnosed with leukemia. So we had about 2.5 years of treatment and all that stuff. She's doing good now,
Awesome.
all better. She's 16. She's got her first real job interview tomorrow. She is working on her learner's permit for driving. She's doing great. But that was really the time that like the local community between my coworkers and beyond at OSU, and then my cycling community through Bobby and Crystal at District Bicycles, like really came together to support us during that time, like overwhelming amount. And so that finally really let me kind of get more connected, I think, in a personal way with the community.
Right.
So we get through that. And once we get through that, I kind of am realizing, and my wife at the same time was like, we need a break. And so we decided to buy an old RV, fixed it up, and old, it was like from the 90s, not super old. And when our daughter was done with chemo treatment, we decided to just take a little RV trip for a month or so. Went out to Arizona and California, and kind of it was the winter time, so we stayed south, and then came back and needed kind of a something new. So I left OSU, and that wasn't like a job I could go back to because they filled it with somebody else.
Yeah.
Actually, I helped hire my replacement and train my replacement.
Wow.
Which is good. I think that's ideally if you're running a business or an organization, especially if you have somebody that's, built something over 4 or 5 years, if they can teach the next person in charge. On a bike ride, I ran into a gentleman that was starting a local butcher shop, and that would have been the owner of 1907 Meat Company. And we were on a bike ride together. I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. Like I've always freelanced on the side with website design, graphic design a little bit, mostly websites. So there's a handful of businesses in town. I've done their websites and help them maintain them and stuff like that.
Right.
So he's telling me that he is getting ready to spend like $10,000 for this company in Oklahoma City that is going to do his website. Now they were doing like the all the branding and all like professional level stuff, like really good. But then we were looking at the website and I was like, dude, I can knock you out a website for like $1,000, $2,000.
Yeah.
And so he was like, okay, yep. He just saw me because all he really needed was like, he had hired people to do like some nice photos with these farmers and all this stuff. He just needed a place that was all put together. It looked good. It functioned. It needed to have potential for like e-commerce and stuff, but it was really a pretty basic website. And they were going to charge $10,000 for this. And it was going to be on some super proprietary, like you can't log in yourself to change stuff type of thing. Oh, no. And I was like, no, that's terrible. You're locked in now. Every time you're like, hey, can you change this paragraph? They're going to be like, okay, well, this is an hour's worth of work. Yeah. And it's like, no, you just want to be able to log in and change the dang paragraph yourself.
Yeah.
So one thing led to another, and I started doing more things. He needed a point of sale system. He needed a point of sale system that could potentially do a restaurant, but then also connect to the meat scales that are still like run on RS-232, like old game port
Yeah.
jacks, and our point of sale system was run on iPads.
That sounds like quite the conversion.
Yep. But there was a company out there that called Revel that had those types of integrations. But I had to spend a lot of time, on tech support with them to get it to actually work.
Right.
So then I was implementing that and helping out more and doing some basic IT stuff. And then it just turned into like, hey, I will hire you full time. I can't pay you a whole lot, but you might also have to help sometimes pack some meat, run some food at the restaurants, or deliver, a cow's worth of meat down to OU, which is where we had a wholesale account with. And so that was going good for a couple of years, and then it wasn't going good. We had really hitched our wagon to OU actually. So we were providing up to 4 cows and like 3 or 4 pigs a week.
Oh, wow.
Pretty much all the beef and pork for a while was processed, killed and chilled here at FAPSI at OSU. And then our butchers would process it here downtown.
Yeah.
And then we'd load that up in a refrigerated van and take it down to Norman. And so all their student union, all their restaurants on campus there, from their really like the equivalent of their Ranchers Club, whatever that is, to, just their regular student union food. And then like 2017, when OU got a new president, he's not the same president. I forget his name. But anyways, he basically was brought in to hack and slash their budget because they were like $1 billion in debt.
Yeah.
And so the food program, and so the whole reason we were able to even provide them this was because the owner, he started off just by like, okay, I bought a cow. I've got, a dozen people that all go in on it, and we make these, boxes of like, you get so many steaks, you get so much grind and all this stuff. And so then he was at a conference, and it was OU saying, okay, the students have challenged us in what's called a real food challenge, is to increase the amount of locally sourced proteins that the university would buy. And there was multiple steps to this, and it's not just the OU thing. I think it was kind of like a national type of deal.
Yeah.
But they took it up, and they were in a room with all these meat packers and all these people and said, so one of the qualifications was you need to be able to list on your product which farm that pound of ground beef came from. The owner of 1907 was the only one that stood up and said, I can do that. And so fast forward, he secures $250,000 contract. And which is one of those things where like when you're a new business and something like that happens, like you're just like, you're energized. For one, now you got to actually, do what you said you're going to do.
Yeah.
And then you kind of use that money to kind of pre-build it out.
Right.
Because you got to go buy cows before they're dead.
Yeah.
You have to like do all this stuff. And so it just ramped up. And then of course, then on Main Street, we were building out the whole thing. And so I kind of came on board. They are already committed to building the butcher shop downtown. And so some certain decisions on things and stuff were before I was around. And I was really more just like a lieutenant supervisor type of person, and then also technology.
Right.
I didn't really have any insight into like the business numbers and all that stuff. But when OU's new president came along, they basically came back to us and said, hey, we're buying 4 cows a week. We really need to cut that down to 1. And they were like, but we're going to give you basically, I think like 6 months, like a taper down.
Yeah.
And so at that time, we were trying to work on having other locations to sell some of this meat that wasn't just downtown. So downtown at that time was we had Granny's down there. That's when Granny's was on the other side of the roundabout. But that portion of downtown was still relatively people drive through. I mean, you probably hear this from many other businesses around, but we had been open for longer than a year, and somebody would come in and say, "Wow, I didn't know you were here." And we're like, "Yeah, we've been here for a year." And he's like, "Man, I drive down this road every day to work, and I didn't notice you."
Yeah.
A little side note on that is blade signs are better than flat signs on streets like Main Street, is because especially locals that drive them every day, you tune all this stuff out. And if it's not like sticking out, it's not readable.
So when you say blade signs, you mean signs that are sticking
perpendicular to the road.
Yeah.
Even something little like,
so that you don't have to read it as you're going by, you read it as you're going down the street.
Have to turn your head. And now, of course, obviously you can look out the front window and see some signs and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But and also our sign, which is covered up now, it was a big old, it was more like an art piece.
Yeah.
It would have been easy to not actually see like the logo or understand what was happening inside.
Right.
But anyway, so OU's like tapering down, and we were also trying to work with like Carl Blackwell and a coffee shop in Edmond and some to have basically freezers.
Yeah.
We'd put a chest freezer in and say, "Hey, if you can be a pickup location, like we have the online ordering and they can select your location." At the time we were doing burger boxes. So the restaurant side had really developed some really cool burger patties with cheese and bacon and peppers and all these types of things that we're serving on the restaurant side that people wanted to take home. And so, and because it's frozen, as long as you got freezer space, like you kind of, your product is, got a nice long shelf life ideally.
Right.
So you're not as worried about like, okay, this is super old. But, so, and then we were also trying to do like online orders, like, okay, we're going to, what do we need to get a box with enough insulation to be able to throw the stuff in there and meet all the like, code and legal requirements to then mail it to somebody that wants to buy, Oklahoma beef, and that we can actually point, like you could actually, scan a QR code and see which farm it came from, that type of thing. So, and obviously that wasn't a super unique idea. There's a bunch of people that have tried it, although I don't know if anybody's really truly done it successfully outside of what's the popular online meat place?
Butcher Box?
Yeah, but before them, it's an old school one.
Omaha Steaks?
Omaha, that's it. Yeah. But it was cool. I got to go out to a lot of these farms and meet the farmers, meet the ranchers, and all that stuff, and see the animal alive before it was on my plate. And so that kind of gave me at least a real world experience of what it takes to kind of be a startup local entrepreneur in Stillwater that's got some funding. You got people that are like excited about it, but if you get a little ahead of yourself on some things, it's hard to maintain. So ultimately, we just ran out of runway.
Yeah,
the startup money couldn't outrun the debt.
Yeah,
and had to close up.
Yeah.
So
so what year did that close?
2018, 2019, no, 2018. And then kind of from there, that led to my involvement with the Downtown Stillwater Association.
Okay.
So at the time at 1907, I'm running. So I was also I kind of partnered up with somebody to run our social media. Sally Turner, if you
sounds familiar.
Sally, okay. She was the media director, or not media director. She was like communications person for Mid-South.
Oh, okay.
Early on, and then, but she worked with us at 1907 too.
Gotcha.
And so she was also the journalist at the editor at the O'Colly that was submitting stuff way back. So it's kind of fun. Like, I've been here long enough now to like work with people in kind of different ways.
Yeah, that's cool.
But anyway, so we're running social media and all this stuff, and we're trying to get, more people to come through, especially like summer times like right now in Stillwater,
It's rough.
A quarter of the population is gone.
Yeah.
It's a blessing in some ways.
Yeah. Traffic.
Yeah. And so the Chamber of Commerce at the time was having was hosting downtown merchant meetings, like once a month meetings. And something happened. And so I started going to those. The owner was like, oh, you can totally go to those instead of me. And so
Yeah.
I went to the first one was at District Bicycles. Bobby was talking about the upcoming race. And, there was maybe 10 or less people, kind of sipping around on their coffees and,
Right.
and hey, thanks for telling us about this. And that was kind of it. But it was still a place to like meet other downtown merchants and network and just kind of get to know what the Chamber of Commerce and stuff was doing. And then they stopped. And so I reached out and I was like, hey, 1907 will host this next one. And they're like, here you go. And gave me the email list.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I invited everybody to come to 1907. And we had like 30 people show up for the first meeting. And what helped was we had good coffee and we had pastries. So you offer food, that helps people show up.
Yeah.
But at the time, I just put it out there. I was like, we got to figure out how to work together in some way.
Right.
The downtown business improvement district had just ended. So that kind of organization / funding was not renewed. And then as being like downtown, I'm going through and studying other downtowns, and I come across this thing called Main Street America.
Oh, yeah. I remember hearing you talking about that.
Yep. And so, and then doing more research, and it was like, oh, Stillwater downtown used to have a Main Street program. And then end up like finding previous directors of that program and then talking to other downtown merchants who used to be board members of that program and stuff. And I was like, we need to bring this back. And then there were questions. It was like, well, we dissolved the Main Street program when we kind of adopted the bid.
Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah, people are like, well, there's a reason. Well, and the main thing was the Main Street program was going to be like a membership program, kind of like Chamber of Commerce and stuff.
Yeah.
And so businesses were kind of strapped to be a part of so many, kind of similar type of deals.
Right. What's the benefit of one over the other? And
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, but at the time I was like, man, I don't know. Like the program, like they've I described it as a wheel that's already been built. You just kind of got to like figure out how to drive it. And so that's why actually where we're at right now is kind of an important space. So that happened here with Kristen Hadley.
Yeah. At the co-working center, by the way. That's where we are.
Yep. We eventually started having all of our meetings here. And that's how, a group of us came together and we're like, we need to form a nonprofit. And let's pursue trying to bring back a Main Street program. And so we did like trainings and all that stuff. And we even got we had to get a resolution from the city council to say that, they're excited about something like this.
Yeah.
It didn't commit them to anything. There was no commitment to money.
Them just kind of acknowledging the program.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And so, yeah, getting all that going. But at the same time, I'm back doing my little side hustles on things.
Yeah.
But at the same time, not really having a job. So, for me to give a lot of time to that was my runway was limited. And then just shortly after that time, I kind of backed away because, I went and got a job. And then and I started working actually at Kicker.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was just a robot assembler. The little speakers. Well, I did a couple things, but the little speakers that went into their tailgates for the GMC pickup trucks, those all needed to be tested. So they plug it into a computer system with a microphone and it does audio sweep, and I'm listening for solder stuff rattling. Yeah. But I also did actually some actual soldering. We were putting together the little switches that would tell if the tailgate was up or down. And they were trying to get somebody in Arkansas to do them, but they weren't doing them good enough.
Oh, yeah.
And I hadn't soldered something since like high school. But I was like, yeah, I could do it.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, yeah, that's good enough. So somewhere there's components that I helped assemble in somebody's truck.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then that changed everything again. So I left Kicker to stay home with the family during the pandemic. So I was the at home dad with 3 teenagers. Well, I guess elementary and pre-teen at the time, 4th through 7th grade. Trying to figure out how to do school over Zoom and all the things the school system was trying to figure out at that time.
Yeah.
And then I got on Facebook in 2021, like January 2021, and I was like, who wants to start a podcast? And Michelle Charles, who at the time was the city editor for the Stillwater News Press, she spoke up in the comments. She's like, "Oh yeah, that'd be great. There's so many things we do." So we started chatting, and we decided to do a podcast starting on local elections. So at the time in 2021, there was like 8 people that all ran for mayor.
Wow.
Or it may not have been actually mayor. It might have just been city council.
I think it was city council.
I think it was
there were a
just
lot of city council candidates that year.
And school board too.
Mm-hmm.
There was like suddenly, because we were hardly having like anybody run for any of this stuff.
Right.
I mean, you have a lot of, I would say maybe except for the mayor and Christy Hawkins, and Tim Harden a little bit, but there's not really been a lot of serious like campaigning and competition in this area. And then school board, definitely not. Like, I mean, post-pandemic, then suddenly a bunch of people for a bunch of different reasons were paying attention.
People
to
got very political.
Yeah. And school board's supposed to be kind of boring, but not anymore. So we decided, hey, let's just kind of similar to this. Let's just bring people on and get to know them as a human first. Even though Michelle was, the local journalist that has been, on the city beat and doing it for a decade. It was more of like, hey, where are you from? How'd you get here? Why do you care? One of our interviews, which we also learned, like, okay, we can't go so long. We probably spent 20 minutes learning about this guy's, how he likes to take care of bees. Like, he's a beekeeper. But he's also running for mayor.
Yeah.
So we did that series, for like 2 years. And then an opportunity popped up for me to join the news press. They had an opening for a news editor. I had never really done any type of, like I said, journalism before and stuff. But I was like, I can learn InDesign. I can learn any of these tools pretty quickly. Yeah. And so Bo Simmons, the editor, hired me, and he was like, okay, we're hiring you for this, but we also want to do this. So we had already started a podcast called In the Newsroom that we probably did, I think, like 60 or 70 episodes. Nice. And they were roughly weekly, but they were just kind of a story behind the story of this week's news. Yeah. And so we had started that. So I got on board with the news press. And that was like a second shift type of job. That was like a 2 to sometimes like 1 o'clock in the morning type of job. Wow. Mostly because I was slow at doing the job. But also the printing press, the deadline to get there is like, midnight, 1 o'clock. And it was great. Like I learned, okay, here's how like local news actually works. So like go back to where like my first impression of the news press, I'm like, ugh. I just hated the presentation, right? But the people and the reason and then the content and all that, how it comes together, I got it. Like I enjoyed it, but I also saw its value. And so do some time there. We end up winning an award amongst the company, the corporate ownership, like but that was against like 100 other newspapers in the country, but we won a digital news award for the podcast.
Oh, very cool.
And then as soon as we won that award, we stopped.
Why?
We went out on top. There was some personnel changes coming, and at the time, our editor was now also going to be an editor of another newspaper, and then so time just started slipping, and I was like, if we can't commit to this weekly, and also at the same time, there were supposed to be, the whole deal was, this was extra time. I was not paid to do this.
Oh, okay.
This was like extra stuff. I was going and doing all the newspaper thing, and they were giving me a couple hours there to basically edit the podcast, which required a lot of editing, actually. Yeah. Especially with 4 people jumping around.
Oh, I bet.
And none of us are like trained radio people, like newspaper people, or just not trained talkers.
Yeah.
Or ramblers. But, and so there was, the sales side was supposed to be selling some sort of sponsorship or advertisements, because the deal was, okay, they're going to get that. And then once they get that going, like, okay, we can figure out, because we had set up Studio Stillwater, I guess is what I'm talking about, as a separate business. And they were fine with that. There's actually a lot of journalists that kind of build their own thing and then kind of partner with their main source. So, but all that wasn't happening. And so, so we stopped the podcast. And then an opportunity opened up to jump onto the sales side, and I wanted to know kind of how that side of the business worked too. And then the other thing was that was like an 8-to-5 job, more money. I could be home with the kids and family and all that stuff. And so I did that all up until November of last year. And then yeah, felt like I kind of had all the fundamentals to do a local news service, but kind of build it from the ground up based upon technologies that I control. Or at least I have control in, as much as I'm paying like a monthly subscription for, or something like that to use that service, but they're not tied to the major tech companies, basically. And I have no interest in, slapping a bunch of programmatic ads that track you and all that stuff on my website. Like going back, like I kind of want like the actual newspaper experience, but digital. But also not like, so at the news press, you can get like the digital version, on an app. But then you tap and read it, and it changes all the formatting, and the pictures don't advance the story. They're separately. And I like reading stuff, because and this was mostly from blogs, where like some of the best bloggers were, you write something, here's a photo, maybe you're talking about a product or something.
You time the images with the story, and you make it flow.
They're part of the story. It's not just, oh, here's an image. And then also, like, if there's an ad, like, okay, there's an ad. It's not trying to get in your way too much. So for the past 6 months now, I've been running the Stillwegian, and I focus on local public meetings. So I go to city council meetings. I go to Payne County Board of Commissioners meetings. I go to library board meetings. There's all these small public meetings out there that you can really, that's kind of where some of the initial impacts, especially of like broader news subjects, like kind of happen first. And I was always, so I've also interacted with the city in ways, and I was always frustrated when something comes up before city council. I mean, we could talk about, well, COVID's an outlier, really. But so many people show up at the end of the process to make their voice heard. And as I like watch that, it's not because they're just not paying attention and they just don't care until they care right at the end. It's that nobody's out there getting them that information in an easily digestible form. So they can kind of keep their finger on the pulse or know what's happening. So for example, when people gather against maybe a new housing development or a neighbor that wants to turn their house into an Airbnb, well, that starts in planning commission. Planning commission's not super sexy. It's not really that. But if you know, like, hey, there's this thing coming on, and this, or this could potentially impact my property or where I'm living or something, and I want to say that. Well, you're probably not going to go to that planning commission meeting unless you've been like notified by the city of something. And even that's like 300 feet. Like you could just be 10 doors down or something, and you wouldn't know that, oh my gosh, this is getting ready to move in next to you.
Right.
So, but if say you subscribe to the Stillwegian, and I've covered that, like, hey, here's this new development coming along, and you're like, oh shoot, that's down the road.
Yeah.
And then you can be like, oh, okay, well, the planning commission like approved it. It's got to go through city council at least like once or twice. And so that public realm and those public hearing portions, like that is our town square, is the public forum.
Yeah.
Where if like I have people now that I've been doing this, and my reporting, I just report on what happens in the meeting. I don't have any opinion on the website. I don't put out any commentary or editorials. At some point in the future, that might change. Like in the long run,
right?
I view the Stillwegian as meeting the needs, just like a traditional newspaper.
Right, when you can expand, but right now you're just focused on the facts.
Because and I need to build trust, because that's the trust that was built over a century,
right? By traditional
newspapers, and not even on purpose, by the way. Like 100 years ago, that Stillwater had multiple newspapers, and there's a history book by a newspaper man, Newsom, that did a bunch of Stillwater history books, and he talks about how some of the early editors, like they were one-man operations. They brought a printing press. They wrote the stories and did them with the typesetting and everything.
Yeah.
And would publish them.
That's crazy.
And the editors at the time, two of the editors of these papers had some sort of beef, and they were basically throwing shade on each other and their editorial stuff. So much so that at one time they met at a bar somewhere downtown and like got into a fist fight.
That's awesome.
I'm not ready to get in no fist fight with no other local editors, and I'm not. And for right now, I'm not doing any editorial.
Yeah.
But anyways, it was really interesting working at the news press, because I like kind of learned a lot of the reasons of why newspapers and why we kind of did things certain ways back then, and I think a lot of some of that basic fundamental stuff was like still valid now. Like we still need that now. Right. We still need somebody that can actually point to sources and not just and understands the difference between writing in the first person and the third person. Like the basic things. Like you can't you're not a reporter if you're like, I think this person, like,
right.
It's got to be in other people's words. Like I just interviewed somebody from TSET for a story. The city of Stillwater is updating their smoking ordinance, and they're specifically updating it to match language for the states and federal smoking laws, but also making adjustments to satisfy TSET's requirements for grants. So the city of Stillwater cannot apply for any grants from TSET, which are like $40 to $50 million a year in grants that they give out, because our ordinance does not include like vaping and some.
It's not 40 and 50 million to Stillwater. It's just in general.
In the state.
In the state, yeah.
And so I know a lot of that stuff about TSET, but I'm going to go interview them so they can tell me in their own words. And so then if I'm not worried about like getting something wrong. Like the biggest thing I'm worried about getting wrong is like spelling or maybe a number wrong here or there. And so it's important that it's their words. So I do full reports, quotes, and everything like you would see in a traditional story. But at the same time, I understand that most people are not going to read it, and they're not going to read. Even though on average mine are probably like 800 words, maybe 1,000.
Not much.
So that was the other thing working at the news press is there'd be plenty of times somebody would call in and want to talk about something in a story. Usually it was the opinion page,
Yeah.
which,
Right.
and it's like, well, that's not our opinion. That's somebody else, but they're mad that we put that opinion in there.
Yeah.
And which I didn't do the opinion page. That is the editor's job. That's Bo Simmons. He selects all that stuff and does that himself. But you could tell on some stories, like they just didn't read all the way through, or they just read the headline. Maybe they read a subhead if there is one. Maybe they read the description on the photo. Like our eyes hit all that stuff before then we get into, because like when you're going to read, like then like, okay, now I'm committed.
Yeah.
And of course, in a traditional inverted pyramid style story, the most important information should be in those first couple paragraphs.
Yeah.
And it's that reason, because once again, traditional journalism knows the less important stuff should be at the end because less people are going to read to the end.
That makes sense.
But the thing with that, and so the complete story is important to have it there, especially for like record's sake. But knowing that people aren't going to read it all, and there might be some nugget down there at the end that might like answer their question.
Right.
So this is instead of so I create a smart summary. So I don't know if you've probably heard of Axios. They're a national news agency.
I think you told me about it a different time, but yeah.
Yeah. Right now, they're probably getting the most scoops in Washington, D.C. right now. They crafted something they called smart brevity. So it's that kind of bullet point style, bolding words and all this stuff, which I think really fits especially like millennial and younger readers. Because like I didn't grow up reading newspapers. Like I think there were newspapers in the house, but I have no affinity for the physical newspaper. Like I can't use like here, read the story. I mean, I can do it, but I'd rather just scroll through it on my phone real quick.
Yeah.
And so the smart brevity is basically going through and taking all those important nuggets and making it literally less than 5 minutes to kind of, it's meant for skimmers,
Right.
which is what most of us now are, especially for news that is disposable kind of in a way.
Yeah. Well, news
Like
that
you read it once, like you're not
Yeah.
going to come back and read it again unless you're doing some research or referencing something.
especially for like timing and things like that.
Yeah. But
Like something that's not going to be a relevant story in
yeah,
3 days or something like that.
I always imagine like the water cooler scenario where, you know, somebody's like, oh, hey, did you hear this is happening, you know, in Stillwater? And you just saw it pop up from the Stillwegian and you read the newsletter email, you read that smart summary, but you didn't really click through to go to read the full thing. But you could still be there and like, oh, yeah. And then they would know the key information instead of like what traditional newsletters, especially from traditional companies do, where they usually give you, you know, the first 2 or 3 paragraphs and then like, here's a button to read more. So you don't really get the complete story. So I try in that to not really what we would call bury the lead. You've been reading the Stillwegian for a little while now. So what do you think?
I really like it. I like that. Well, I think one of the most beneficial things that you're doing is that you're kind of multi-platform. So you're actually sharing some of not your full stories, but you're actually sharing those snippets and teasers on social media.
Yeah.
So I spend way more time on social media. I know my generation spends a whole lot of time there compared to other, I guess, more traditional news outlets. And so I like knowing, hey, here's this thing for you. You can go check it out if you want, kind of coming into the main sphere of where I get information about more of the outside world, you know?
Yeah.
So I really like that and I appreciate that. And I even remember a couple of years ago when we, I guess, won Best Marketing in Stillwater at the News Press, and we came in, and that was when you worked there, and I was like, hey, why don't you guys share anything on social media? And so I appreciate that you're doing a great job at that.
Yeah. And running, so on the News Press, I mean, a lot of the things I'm doing is not too much different from how it had been done at the News Press over the last few years, but that's because it was me behind the scenes. I mean, there was, in the CRM when we're publishing stories that, go to the print, but then go to the website, and there's a little checkbox that says send to Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff. And then, sometimes people forget to check those things.
Yeah.
My job was to make sure they were checked and they got out. And I could look at the analytics on Google Analytics, on our internal analytics, on social media, and make the direct connection between, okay, that story blew up.
Right.
And, but on the ad sales side, nobody was really paying attention to any of that stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. So to kind of wrap us up, I'm going to ask kind of a two-part question.
Okay.
One, what do you love about running a local publication? And two, what do you love about Stillwater?
I could probably answer both of those. So, what I love about Stillwater is, and it's a combination of the transient nature of there's always new people coming in. Unfortunately, that also means there's people leaving too, with the university. But you kind of get a diverse group of perspectives. And then because of, I would say, obviously the educated nature of the community, as it being basically, our export to the world is, bring your kids here and we're going to educate them and send them back out. Mm-hmm. Hopefully some of them maybe stick around. Some of them come back later. But the thirst for information and participating in things from civic engagement to, civic clubs to our nonprofits and all that stuff, like the community really does try to support each other here. And like I said, that kind of goes back to when my daughter had cancer, like people that I didn't know were stepping up for us in so many different ways. And so Stillwater's got a big heart. And especially now being here for 17 years, and I've got to know a lot of people. We really do have each other's back here, I think. And I think it's a great place to, if you've got that either entrepreneurial itch or you just want to dream, like you see something that the community doesn't have and you want to try to provide that, like the community will support you as best as it can. Now, except with like 1907, the community supported us as best as they could. They came to eat as much as they could. And unfortunately it wasn't enough, but everybody still showed up. And I guarantee you almost everybody you talk to is like, well, I miss that place. And then now we've got new people trying to do something similar. And I hope, they make it happen. So, I mean, I've got 3 teenagers now. They're all getting ready to be in high school and junior high and middle school. And, I'm so glad I'm able to raise them here in Stillwater.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed that episode with Chris. Be sure to follow the Stillwegian on all of their social platforms, and also go check out their website, linked in the show notes below. Subscribe, check out all the news stories, and just really stay up to date with what's happening in Stillwater. And if you loved today's episode, don't forget to follow the podcast on social as well. And be sure to share the podcast with all of your Stillwater friends so that we can grow the podcast and our community. If you believe in building community through these conversations, consider supporting the podcast on Patreon, where, for less than the price of a cup of coffee, you can get early access to episodes, a peek behind the curtain at the podcast process, and a shout out on an episode. With a higher contribution, you can submit questions for upcoming guests, make special requests for the show, get access to online Q&As, and even be on the podcast for an interview segment. And I want to give some of those people a shout out. Currently, we have one Stillwater patron sponsor, Darren Huddleston. Thank you so much. No matter what your capacity for supporting the podcast is, every little bit helps grow this amazing community. And remember, we all need community. So even when life gets busy, make sure you still connect.